everybody, and welcome back to Hairspray Girls.
So Katie, today what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about body image and segregation today.
Okay Katie, so let's start with body shaming. So what are some scenes in the movie where we see body shaming?
Well, the most obvious is the Corny Collins show.
So what's the Corny Collins show?
It's a popular dance show in Baltimore that teenagers look up to for standards on how to look and act. But the show only features one type of person, a skinny, traditionally attractive white teenager.
How are teens affected by the show in the movie?
Well, in the movie, Tracy is ridiculed for her body type. Because teenagers are convinced that thin is the only desirable body type, they don't respect Tracy. This changes when Tracy is represented on film. They accept her and even try and copy her image. This goes to show that teens are susceptible to images they see in media.
So how is this applicable to our society?
Well, according to Gale-opposing viewpoints, critics have argued that the lack of realistic bodies in media negatively affects individuals' body image. Underrepresented in media, these body types are not as respected. In our society, we mainly see thin people represented in media. When larger bodies are there, they mainly exist to be made fun of.
How is there proof of this?
Other people think this bias exists too. Annalisa Oriolo and Christian Anderson state that the media is thought to be an aggressive purveyor of weight-related norms and serves as a cultural indicator of beauty and attractiveness. In the movie, some producers of the Corny Collins show are outraged that Tracy is cast because she is a different body type than they are trying to promote. This goes to show that the choosing of one body type is intentional, and it's intending to say that one body type is desirable over others.
So who else thinks this?
The Salem Press Encyclopedia argues that overweight and obese individuals face various forms of subtle prejudice. This is shown by a lack of representation in media. Not being represented in media is an intentional diss towards people with larger body types. They're intending to say that people with large body types aren't as valuable as people with thin bodies.
So is there any more examples of body shaming?
The character Velma is the biggest perpetrator of body shaming in the movie Hairspray. She is meant to personify the beauty standards set on women and all people in media.
So how does Velma do this?
She sings a song called Miss Baltimore Crabs.
Well, this show isn't broadcasted. CinemaScope!
I never drank one chocolate malt, no desserts for Miss Baltimore Crabs.
This one will never get a date in those hand-me-down clothes.
Ha! Kid, she'll never get a date till Daddy buys her a new nose. I would say, oink-a-bolt, if I wasn't Miss Baltimore Crabs.
Do you dance like you dress?
Amber, there's no need to be cruel.
This song is sung while she is meant to be judging the auditioning dancer's skills. Instead, she merely focuses on how the dancers look. This is representative of how the media's main focus is putting out a certain type of body to promote.
So is this done in real life as well?
Yes, according to Gale-opposing viewpoints, certain body types have been underrepresented in media and less likely to be promoted as beautiful. The media gets to decide which type of body is desirable and then shows it as beautiful to persuade the society to think the same. Underrepresentation of those body types encourages people who have those body types to think poorly of themselves and try to become what the media views as a perfect person. Okay, now let's talk about segregation. What are some instances of segregation?
Honestly, the whole movie is based on the issue of segregation of African Americans. But where we mostly see it shown would have to be the Corny Collins show and also in Tracy's high school, where they place all the African Americans in detention because that's where all the whites of the school isolated them.
What is the whole idea of isolating African Americans specifically in detention?
Well, the movie itself is trying to show a more lighthearted way of explaining segregation in general, so using detention as an analogy better helps the teens to connect to the movie and deliver the overall message. And people in school know that detention is a place for people who are troubling to society and for discipline. And since all the African Americans were placed in detention, the rest of society sees them as people who are troubling.
Going back to the Corny Collins show, how does the show depict segregation?
The people on this show are the ones influencing what teens should believe. In the movie, one instance is when the people on the Corny Collins show start singing the intro song called Nicest Kids in Town. They make a whole musical number just trying to convince the audience that if they want to be cool and fit in, they would have to be just like them. They believe that they are considered the most dominant and more superior race.
So what about the only day African Americans can dance on the show?
Well, that's completely unfair to them because they only get to dance on the show once a month, so it makes them feel like that they don't belong in the show and that they are not accepted in society. According to Gale opposing viewpoints, it's stated, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, some argue that it represents too much of federal intrusion into the authority of the state. Opponents also believe that the law cannot change what lies in the hearts of men. This quote means that even though there is a law that gives African Americans their deserved rights, many people will not change their morals because their beliefs force them to ignore the law. Only because of the civil rights movement, they had to let them be on TV at least once.
How is this applicable?
So, since this movie did take place in the 1960s, the civil rights movement was still very active during that time. Although they stated that African Americans had the same rights as everyone else, people still didn't accept it because they were so influenced by what they saw in the media. So according to the Racism in Media Journal, they stated, during the beginning stages of film and media, blacks struggled to represent their own stories, beliefs, opinions, and identities because whites controlled the entertainment industry and chose what images of blacks to portray. This was exactly what the Corny Collins show was. Even though African Americans had the right to be on TV, they were still controlled by the whites. Also, in the same article, they stated, historically and generally, continue in the 21st century, non-whites and women have not been gatekeepers in American news media organizations. Minorities have never had the right to take control of what is shown in media, and everything is shown from a white male's perspective, and that's what everyone else believes.
So how do segregation and body shaming relate?
In both cases, the media is in control of what people think.
If the media decides to show one race or body type over another, they promote that race or body type over others.
This causes the public to attempt to conform and become the media's idea of the perfect person. Thank you so much for watching, Hairspray fans.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. What's one question that you would ask a Hairspray fan?
Bye.